Hello there. Today we're at Hawn State Park and we're going to hike the Whispering Pines Trail. We'll actually do an overnight here. I'm going to stay at Backcountry Site number 5. I just wanted to show you this. Here at the trailhead parking area, they just did a prescribed burn yesterday. Actually, all the fallen logs and stumps are still smoldering and smoking, and the entire valley is kind of filled with that smoke. It's an interesting experience to be around something like this. I was in a wildfire once in March Twain National Forest. And it's really impressive how fast that spreads. This is a managed fire, of course, a prescribed fire. And I had to stop for 5 different deer on the way to the trailhead. So the wildlife is really active this morning. All right, let's go ahead and head for the trail. Okay, so here's the map of the trailhead. If you remember last spring, we were here to hike the Pickle Creek Trail, this green trail here. And the creek was actually at flood stage. That was my first time to ever see that. It's a beautiful stream. We'll see it later in the hike. This is our trailhead. We'll come up here into the North Loop, which is 6 miles. Come around across the creek a few times. Head on down to the South Loop. Here's our overnight site at Backpack Camp number 5. Tomorrow we'll come around through here, which I think is not on here, is a little spur trail through the Oxboss River Valley, which is beautiful. Adds about another mile to it. This is a 6-mile loop, 4-mile loop, roughly another mile for Oxboss. And coming back and finish up tomorrow. A couple of beautiful overlooks, roughly, if I remember correctly, here and here. And right in here actually is a really pretty one overlooking Pickle Creek and the campground, but it's a great view from there. All right, let's get hiking. So there's a connector trail to cut directly through the middle of the North Loop to get to the South Loop. It used to be, when this was originally built in the, I think 76, 77 time frame, that you had to do the entire 6 miles or 10 miles. And most people didn't do the entire 10 miles and missed the Southern Loop, which is pretty. It's almost as pretty as the Northern Loop. So they put this connector trail in, kind of as an out to the South Loop in the back of the connector to make it, I think, around 6 miles, and skipping the North Loop. That way you could kind of do 2 separate hikes and see the entire trail. It was a great idea. You can see the smoke from the burn still lingering in the valley. It's Pickle Creek below us. We're soon going to leave this valley and head south. We'll probably escape that smell soon too. We're going to pan left, show you this is such a beautiful sight here. Love those pines. Hawn is generally considered to be the most beautiful park in the state of Missouri, and I completely agree. I remember back in the 70s as a teenager, excuse me, when I first started backpacking, this was one of the first trails I backpacked and fell in love with it immediately. There's Pickle Creek below us. If you saw my video of Pickle Springs natural area from last spring, probably at least 10-15 miles west of here is the start of Pickle Creek. Well, that sweatshirt didn't last long. We're making a downhill now on the top of the bluffs down to Pickle Creek for our first crossing. Getting close to the creek now. It's beautiful. I see multiple little waterfalls, drops, and pools. I need to get back here and shoot a video of Pickle Creek now that it's at a normal stage of water instead of flood stage. It's a beautiful stream. I have a picture of my daughter sitting on top of that rock right there when she was younger. It's a great place to sit and just watch the water flow by. We're upstream now from that rocky shut-in section of Pickle Creek, and here it has a sandy bottom and a slower flow. Beautiful in a totally different way. What a beautiful spot to camp. This is site number 1, and we're just off the trail across the stream from that overhang that I just showed you in a gorgeous pine forest. Under 2 miles probably from the trailhead, and you could walk the Pickle Creek Trail to get here if you wanted to, and you know, where it joins the Whispering Pines Trail. Alright, I can see more than one overnight here in my future. This is beautiful. It used to be that they had dispersed camping here, and they stopped that, I don't know, a few years ago. And now there are only 10 sites in the backcountry. You have to reserve them. And as far as the Missouri parks go, this is the only one I'm familiar with that you have to pay for a backcountry site. Now you do have to get a permit for the other parks, but they're free and online. This one costs $10 per night, and there's a $6.50 additional charge for the service that you make the reservation through. I have to say, this is the first time in my entire life that I've ever had to pay to camp in the backcountry, but it's still worth it, I think so. And I understand now that the Smokies have a permit system, so it's just you have to pay for. It's just coming around, I guess, to all the parks. If it helps support the parks, I'm okay with that. Hopefully the mic picks this up. The sound of the wind in the pines kind of sounds like distant road noise, but it isn't. Almost every one of those rocks moved under my feet. That was fun. Hawn is a beautiful park in the springtime. It's just prolific with wildflowers, and one of the few places in the Ozarks you're going to find pink azaleas and lady slipper orchids. Let's go check out site number 3. Looks like we're going to go down just a little bit, and it may be on the side of Pickle Creek. I missed number 2 somehow. Wow, this is quite a ways off the trail. Wow. This would be nice. Plenty of places to sit. Got a little feeder stream for Pickle Creek, which is behind me a couple of 100 yards. It's dry now, but in the spring, I imagine, it's flowing. It's beautiful. So much of this park reminds me of being out west. The Rockies, the Sierras. I mean, we don't have the steepness. It's just the rock, I imagine. It's pretty. Time for a little snack. Meat stick, RX bar. It'll probably be lunch. I'll eat as I walk. I usually do at this time of the day. Anyway, I wanted to tell you this is my favorite large pack. And it's 70 liters. It's large. But carries more comfortably than any large pack I've ever owned. And I love this couple of features. This one-arm water bottle pocket, which is really hard to find on a pack. Hip belt pocket for snacks, camera batteries, whatever. And it's got this 3-point adjustment system. Just loosen everything up, throw it on, connect the belt, tighten it up here, tighten up your shoulder straps here, pull the weight forward here, and you're done. I think it's the Decathlon 4-Class 100. Sounds about right. All right, let's get going. It's been a while since I've been on this trail. I forgot how large this pine forest is. Huh. Okay, so the north loop is red, south loop is blue. And this is the connector trail, the other end of the connector trail. If you want to just kind of miss the north loop, cut through the middle and get to the south loop. There is a, I believe it's spot number 4 for backcountry camping on the connector trail. So the north and south loop join for a short period, and then they split. You can just do the north loop or get onto the south loop. I really didn't anticipate being here this early. I'm afraid I'm going to have a lot of daylight left when I get to camp. We're on blue now. Alright, and I'm back. After going a half mile up the trail, I came back to this spot again. It's not making sense. According to the map, the red and blue trail, when they intersect, should immediately separate, one going to the east and one going to the south. But according to the blazes, I've got both blazes on the tree right here, and on the sign both arrows go in the same direction. But I went up about a half mile up this hill on the trail, and all I saw were red blazes. So, all right, I guess I'm going back again, see what we find. I'll almost always get lost, but I always get found. Here we go. All right, can't believe I'm climbing this hill twice. Took another look at the map and I figured it out though. I was just temporarily confused, I wasn't lost. All right, here's the deal. So where that connector trail hits, you're really still just on the north loop. And you've got this stretch right here to go, which I'm probably too far away from the camera for you to see it. And then the north and south loop separate. That's a relief. Onward and upward. Okay, so I recognize this hill we're climbing. There are two steep hills on this trail. Views are kind of minimal just because of the growth. There's no such thing as above tree line in Missouri. In fact, we're definitely closer to the ocean than we are tree line anywhere in Missouri. But I think this is the one that does have the most scenic view. We'll find out when we get up there. Yeah, on our way up, we're getting some views across this expansive valley. That is beautiful. Well, it never looks the same on camera as it does in person. You can see for miles and miles from here. Okay, so here we are at the top of the hill. I mean, you're looking through the trees, but it's pretty. It's a really pretty view still. You just have to be able to see it through the trees. So if you want to see Missouri's high point, look at my video from, I guess, last winter, overnight on Comstock Mountain. And I'm standing on a boulder in the middle of the woods with no view. That height is 1,772 feet. That's Missouri's high point. Okay, so here's a really pretty view. We're starting to go down the other side of the hill. We made it way too early. Well, you can tell by how open the woods are here and the charred dead trees that they also do prescribe burns, which is really the only way you can maintain a pine forest in this part of the country. You've either got to replicate that natural cycle of lightning strikes beginning forest fires, or also the Native Americans used to burn large areas too to maintain grassy areas, prairie type areas for bison. So it's interesting to see because for most of our hike after the beginning we really weren't in an area that had been burned. The woods were quite thick. It's really a different feel. I like it both ways. Well, we're down in the bottoms now, and I haven't seen water since Pickle Creek. So I'm going to go ahead and filter some water. Anticipating a dry camp, I'll have 3 liters on me for the rest of the day into whenever I find water again. And I'm going to camel up while I'm here too, try and get a liter in me right here. Oh, that's cold. That is going to be good. Alright, so I drank about 1.5 liters of water. Got some electrolytes in too, so I've got the 1 liter here, another liter, And the Catadine B-free water filter holds a liter. So I'm ready to go. It worked last week at Merrimack. It should work this week. You can really hear the wind whisper in the pines. Alright, so I think I'll collect a little tinder since I'll be in camp so early tonight. If you just break off what's hanging loose, there's no damage done to the tree. I'll probably have a small fire. I didn't bring a book this time because last week at Merrimack I tried to read. It was dark, and before I got to the third page I was gone. I was asleep. So I was thinking I would have the same situation today. I didn't expect to get to camp as early as I believe I'm going to. That's enough. It's 12:30 and I'm at camp. It's going to be a long day. It's a beautiful sight. Ironically, I have water. That's great. This is my view upstream. I get to listen to those waterfalls as I sleep. That's going to be wonderful. This is my look downstream. Beautiful sight. Well, I have at least 4 to 4.5 hours, probably 4, before dark. So plenty of time to explore around, pitch camp, and gather firewood. As heavily used as these sites are, it's going to be difficult to gather enough firewood, but maybe I'll get lucky. I've got time to look and plenty of time to enjoy the scenery. This is wonderful. So this is the downside to the permit system, is that I like to decide when I'm on the trail where I'm going to pitch camp. Just kind of based on how the hike is going. You know, I'm maybe a third of the way through the trail, and I kind of broke a rule on this one. I decided to pick this site because I'd heard it was so pretty. I hadn't heard about the water, and it is, and it's really worth it. I'm going to enjoy it thoroughly. But what my rule, or my guideline is usually, is to get 2/3 or more of the trail done on day one if I'm doing just one overnight, and then finish up with an easy hike out back to the car the next day. So tomorrow's going to be a much longer day on the trail than today, but that's okay. We'll have plenty of time. It's not that long of a trail. I've actually, years ago when I was conditioning for hiking, I would do this trail twice in one day with a day pack. I would do it early in the morning, come back to the car for lunch, do it in the afternoon, come back to the car and go home. Wouldn't even camp out here then. Camping out here is definitely the best though. Let's take a look around, then I'll pitch camp and gather firewood and get back to you after that. So Back at the fire ring is a okay place to pitch a tent. It's a little slopey, but this is a good flat area, a little bit farther away, 50 to 100 feet away from that fire ring, a little bit farther back in the woods. And you can tell it's obviously been used before. This is probably where I'll pitch camp. This piece of land is kind of a peninsula between two streams. This one that you're looking at now is not actively flowing, but it's got a lot of good pools in it still, mostly filled with leaves. It's kind of neat though. Here's another shot downstream from near the fire ring. You've got a small waterfall into that big pool. I love how the stream's covered in leaves, the top of the stream is right now. This is a little upstream from camp. Very close, actually. And then a little bit farther upstream is this gorgeous waterfall and pool. Let's look at that. It's hard to imagine a prettier camp. Here's my tent spot right here. I face the door that way towards the fire ring. The deep pool and waterfall is right over here. Gorgeous. It's going to be a good night. You know, I started pulling everything out of my pack and I realized you might want to see the gear dump. I don't know. Tent, food, camera gear. These are dry bags. Got a poncho and pack cover in there. Poop kit on the top. Sweatshirt I had on this morning. Oh, and those pine cones I wanted to keep. Forgot about those. Jet oil, cook system. Sleeping mat. Came unrolled. 2 pillows because I like 2 pillows. I just threw in some extra clothes. I didn't think I'd need them, but better safe than sorry. A base layer and a knit cap. I needed them last week. Sleeping bag. Now on this pack, it's got a zipper that runs down from top to bottom, down the middle. And that makes it easier. I'm just being lazy, I guess. That's it. 2 water bottles, water filter. And that's my gear. Alright, I'll get back to you later. Man, I don't know what it is about the Ozarks. No matter where I camp at, it's almost impossible to get a stake in the ground. Glad there was that stream next to the tent. Alright, camp is pitched. Now let's find some firewood. Well, as I expected, the firewood in this area has been picked over pretty well. It's difficult to find, but I have at least, well, I've only been at this for maybe an hour and a half. I've got another 2.5 hours till it's dark and it's dinner time before I light this thing. But I've got the tinder and kindling all laid and a small pile of wood. And I really don't want much of a fire. I won't stay up late, I'm sure. And I've got water right there to douse the fire with before I go to bed, just to make everything safe. I've got to say, man, this is an awesome spot to camp. It's just perfect. Wish you were here. So this is pretty cool. I'm exploring around in the woods, kind of looking for firewood, just exploring around too. And behind the tent is this hill and a little grassy area, like a small meadow. I thought, let's go check that out. Just before I got to it, I saw kind of signs of a faint trail. So I followed that for maybe 300-400 yards, and it went to the next campsite, campsite number 6. So it's right on the same stream that this one's on, and it doesn't have the beautiful waterfall and pools, but it still would be a great campsite. Keep that one in mind for the future. So I was thinking about how dry it's been this year. It's been exceptionally dry. And if this stream has this kind of flow in it, then I'm pretty sure that it's always going to have water in it. Sites 5 and 6, I think you can always count on water at those. So when I put my gear out all over the ground and I was pitching the tent, I noticed that everything was starting to get covered in these little red ants. And I must have put something on top of an ant nest, because every time I go to the tent for a drink of water, there are ants on top of the sleeping bag. Not a lot, but yeah, I don't really cherish the thought of spending the night with them, but it's what it is. Okay, so I have 2 stories to tell that have happened to me here on this trail. A funny one, and the creepiest thing that has ever happened to me in the woods actually happened out here. So I'm going to tell the funny one now, and I'll save the creepy one for later when it's a little dark, which might not be a good idea, but that's what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm a teenager, it's in the 70s, with my friend Bill, and we're out here, and it was February, I remember, and so we decided we were going to just come out here, spend the night. We actually slept on the trail somewhere back here on the South Loop, the way I remember it. And we didn't have a tent or any shelter. Neither one of us did. He had the kind of old, well, it was not really old, it was still pretty current at that time, type of sleeping bag, the rectangular sleeping bag, canvas flannel. You know, really warm, man. You could just lay that thing right on the ground and not feel the coldness from the ground and sleep warmly. And I had what was the newest technology at the time. I mean, it was like rocket science for us. It was a mummy bag, and it was down filled on top of that. Very expensive. So I'm a teenager, I'm working for minimum wage, which I think was $1 and a nickel at the time. And that thing was like 140 something bucks. I had to really save up for it, but I did. And so we're hiking along the trail during the day, and you know, our external frame backpacks, and this really skinny coonhound comes running out of the woods at us, and it was just, you know, you could tell it was lost and hungry. And actually most of what we carried back then was canned food, believe it or not. Things like high-powered tamales, you know, something so that when you're sleeping next to your buddy, you can like get each other during the night. And so we just started feeding this guy, this dog, because he looked so hungry, and he was. And so he followed us all the way to where we camped that night. We fed him again, and so we built a fire. And we decided we'd sleep on each side of the fire to try and stay warm, because it was bitterly cold that night. I remember that. And this is my first experience in a mummy bag. I'd always been in the rectangular bags before, and I was freaking out because I was so confined in this little mummy bag. It was not like, you know, you could put your arms out and just have all kinds of room to move around in a rectangular bag. And this wasn't like that, and I'm having to reach to the zipper on the inside to get in and out, and it was just very difficult to work with for the first time. And so I'm kind of having this little paranoia that some rabid skunk or coon or something is going to come up in the middle of the night and just chew my face off, and I won't be able to get that zipper open to save myself, you know? That's what I'm thinking when we're going to sleep. So we've got this fire going, cozy little fire. Bill's on one side, I'm on the other. And the dog, which we named Floyd the trail dog. So we'd already named him and everything. We were taking him home, you know, and we were going to rescue this dog. And that dog's sort of in between us next to the fire, you know, curled up, trying to stay warm. And we go to sleep. Somewhere in the middle of the night, it's been snowing now, and there's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of snow on top of our sleeping bags. And somewhere in the middle of the night, I hear all this scurrying around, and it's pitch black, and I'm thinking, oh, it's that skunk that's come to get me. And I'm wiggling around trying to get out of this mummy bag, and I can't find the zipper, and I'm freaking out. It's like, don't get my face, you know? Finally, I roll over, and Bill's sleeping bag is on fire. I mean, it's like flames probably 18 inches tall coming off the middle of his sleeping bag. and he's sound asleep. And what woke me up was Floyd. Floyd freaked out when his sleeping bag caught on fire and just bolted. He just took off running. And that's kind of what I thought was the skunk. So I start yelling at Bill, Bill, Bill. And I'm still trying to find that zipper, by the way. I said, Bill, wake up. And he sits up and his face goes right in the fire. We had long hair back then, 70s. And so he's cinching his hair and his eyebrows and everything. And he lays back down. I finally get that zipper open. And we carried water in 1 gallon empty milk jugs back then because we didn't have water filters and the types of things that we have to make it a lot easier today than, So anyway, so I get out of that sleeping bag and I'm walking through the snow and I get into my pack and I grab that gallon jug of milk and it's a little icy, but it hasn't frozen. And he's trying to get out of his bag and he's wiggling all around and I just dumped the whole gallon on his sleeping bag. By now it's soaking wet, it's freezing cold, it's February, and it's charred and not usable. And he gets out of there. And so it's like, man, dude, I'm really sorry. Sit by the fire and just try and make it through the night. And I got back in that mummy bag. I just almost asleep and he nudges me and he goes, man, I can't make it. I'm going to die out here. I'm going to freeze to death. And it's like, well, at that point, I was kind of desperate for money, and this light bulb goes on in my head. All right, if I sell this sleeping bag to him, that's $140 that I don't have now. And that went a long ways back then. And it's like, and I can make it through the night by the fire. And I said, I tell you what, I'll let you have this mummy bag, but you got to pay me full price for it. That was brand new. And he goes, man, anything, I'll do that. As soon as we get back home, I'll give you the money, but it's my bag now. So I spent the rest of the night kind of with my legs crossed, huddled over that fire, just trying to keep it going all night long. Never slept the rest of the night. And he did. He slept like well into the morning, comfortably and warm. Anyway, things you do out in the woods. That was hilarious, though. That was a good time. I think I'll explore this wash for a bit. Really cool rocks out here. That's kind of cool. Fun little place to have lunch. Get out of the rain. There's home for the night, and over there is the fire ring. Well, it's a little early for dinner, a little before 4, but I like to have dinner done and cleaned up before dark, which is 4:30. Dinner tonight, spicy sausage bolognese. It's gonna be good. It's my first time with this meal. I really only recently started bringing dehydrated meals. I've got to say though, I think they're made for 2 people. They're really hard to eat all of it. It's hard to eat all of it. They're good. And when it's chilly, a warm meal is great. That's a good meal. Check back with you after dinner. Alright, dinner's finished. It's 4:30. As you could probably tell, it's fairly dark. Probably light this fire in the next 20 or 30 minutes. Tell you that last story about being out here, the last one I could really remember anyway. Gotta tell you, that meal was delicious. Probably one of the fanciest meals I've ever had in the woods, but it's very filling. It's a lot of food. If they can make those in a little bit smaller portions, that would be great. I noticed on some of these dehydrated meals that not everything hydrates completely. Last trip, it was the biscuits and gravy. The biscuits didn't do that, so in the center they were kind of crunchy and dry. And it was the sausage on this meal. I've given it extra time, actually, to hydrate over what it recommends, so I'm not really sure. I'm going to have to see if I can figure that out. Get back to you when it's fire time. Alright, now it's time for the next story. This happened about 10 years ago. It was at the backcountry camp on the connector trail, going from the trailhead to the South Loop. There's a backcountry camp about halfway down that trail. It's in a pine forest, and it was probably late summer, and being a pine forest, there were no leaves on the ground, just pine needles, so it's nice to walk on, nice, soft, and quiet. And I was by myself, and I would say it was probably about 11 or 11:30 at night, and I wake up and I hear, you know how an animal makes a really loud noise when it's walking through deep, like dry, crisp leaves, or a person does? Watch my last video on, what was that, the wilderness trail at Merrimack, and that's all you hear when I'm walking, and it was a noise like that. And I was really confused, well, first of all, because I just woke up, but there were no leaves on the ground. So where was the noise coming from? And it was a little bit away, 50, 60 feet it sounded like, but it was coming straight towards me. So I had a headlamp like this, unzip the tent, you know, and wait until I could tell exactly where the noise was coming from and turn the light on, and there's nothing there. So I kind of look all around, nothing going on, get back in the tent, start to fall asleep again, and the noise picks up right where it had stopped, and it's coming closer to the tent. And now I'm starting to think, well, this is kind of weird. Is there some wild animal that's stalking me, but how is it making that noise? Once again, sneak out of the tent, turn the headlamp on, and there's nothing there. Now it's like 35, 40 feet away. So I definitely should have seen something if there was there. So I'm starting to get a little freaked out. Get back in the tent, and this time I'm going to try and stay awake. About 10 or 15 minutes later, it picks up right where it ended, and it's coming closer to the tent. So now I'm really freaked out. Do the same thing with the light. Nothing there. It's like, you know, I don't know, maybe what if it was like a squirrel or something, but I just couldn't figure out how that dry leaf noise was occurring. Get back in the tent, and almost within minutes, right away, it picked up where it left off. Now it's maybe 15 feet from the tent, and I was sure I was going to catch it. I turned the light on, and there's nothing there. I mean, 15 feet, there's nothing there. So I freaked out and just threw all of my stuff in my backpack, just crammed it in there as fast as I could. I kept looking up to make sure that there was nothing over there. Never did make that noise again. Threw my backpack on and night hiked back to my car. So fortunately from that campsite, it's maybe a mile and a half, something like that from the trailhead. It's pretty close, you know. Maybe, no, not even that far. It's probably a mile. Anyway, as I'm hiking, now it's after midnight. So as I'm hiking back to the car, I keep seeing all these eyeballs glowing in the dark. And most of them are right at my eye level. Like, what is that over there? And, you know, sometimes it was a deer, but there are these little owls. They're maybe like, I forgot what type of owl it is, but it's like about an 8-inch tall owl, and they're all over the woods in that area anyway. And they were on the tree limbs right about my eye level, and so I was just like, there were all these eyeballs glowing in the woods, and I couldn't see the animals until I got right up on them the whole way back to the car. So I just got in the car, locked it up, cranked the seat back, and slept in my car that night, and the next morning drove home. That actually was the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me in the woods. Although, I do have a bear story that would probably freak most of you out more than that. This happened in the Wisconsin pines, in northern Wisconsin, close to the Canadian border. I was a teenager, and I was up there with a friend of mine. I have to say I can't remember his name now. It's been such a long time ago. And we were just cowboy camping, sleeping on the ground up there. And we'd been hiking all day. We just threw our bags down when it was getting dark. And we're sleeping. I wake up in the middle of the night. This is up in Wisconsin. I wake up in the middle of the night, and there is a bear directly over my face, and he's breathing in my face just a couple of inches from my face. I mean, I could smell his breath. It was nasty, and I totally freaked out. It's like, this bear is gonna kill me and eat me right here. And so I didn't move. I was thinking, if I just pretend to be asleep still, maybe he'll just, he's curious and he'll wander off. But I was clenched up and just ready for him to bite right into my head. And he did that for a couple of minutes. He sniffed me, he kind of sniffed around my head and my shoulders. And then my friend was on the ground maybe 3 or 4 feet from me. And then he went over to start smelling him. And so I grabbed my zipper. And so my plan, this is bad, but my escape plan was, as soon as he starts to attack my friend, I'm going to unzip this bag and just take off through the woods. Sorry, whoever you are, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry about that. But anyway, he sniffed him for a little bit, and then he walked off. Needless to say, I really didn't sleep much that night. So the next morning, I'm telling my friend about this, and he never woke up, and he didn't believe me. He thought I was just making up a story. But the ground was kind of soft and squishy around us, and I said, look, there's the prints, from the bear prints, all on the ground, all around both our heads. That was a great one too. All right, I think I'll sit back and enjoy this fire for a bit. Well, the last of the wood's on the fire. It's burning down into a nice bed of coals. Pretty soon it'll be perfect for cooking over. I rarely build a fire. Usually when I hike till it's about dark, just in time to pitch camp, eat dinner, and I hit the sack. At home I'll sleep maybe 7, 8 hours, 9 hours on a great night. But out in the woods, especially when it's cold and it's really good sleeping weather, I'd say about 11, sometimes 12 hours. It's really nice. It's been years since I've actually made a fire on a hike. Surprised I remember how. Later this winter, when it gets really cold and I could take fresh food out and it won't spoil, I think I'll bring some steaks, maybe some potatoes, butter, stuff like that. Do some campfire cooking, do some short hikes, spend some time in camp cooking over the fire. It sounds like a plan. I never figure out the lighting here at night. I'm going to have to bring a lantern. Okay, so it's pretty dark. We're almost down to coals. I'm going to go ahead and just enjoy this fire for a while. Then I'll douse the coals and go to bed. I figure it's time to say goodnight. See you in the morning. Good morning. Well, it's brightening up fast this morning. We had rain last night a few times off and on. Just enough to make the leaves a little damp. You can't even tell it in the ground though. I love listening to the sound of the rain on the tent when I'm sleeping. My air mat sprang a leak on me right at the beginning of the night. I didn't feel like messing around with it last night. I'll figure it out when I get home. So I essentially slept on the ground. which wasn't too bad, but I'm usually a side sleeper, so I felt it on the hips a bit. Well, I'm going to pack up. When I just do one night, what I'll do is, instead of, like when you saw me take everything out of the stuff sacks yesterday, I'm not doing that this morning. I'm just going to fold it all up, stuff it in there, and then I'm going to have to take it out for some of this stuff to dry anyway, and kind of take it back out at home, get it all dried out, and then I'll put it all in the stuff sacks for the next trip. If I'm out on multiple nights, I'll do it differently, but it's just easier this way. Alright, let's get packed up. Here's backcountry site number 6. You can see you just cross the stream, and then you can see the site about, this screen on my camera is so small it's hard for me to tell, but about right there. It's very close to the site I was at last night, and there's a faint trail through the woods between the two. Both great sites, and they're both really close to the trail. Well, this is crazy weather we're having. Mid-November, last year this time we were in the 20s, the low 20s. I don't know what we're at now. It feels like at least 60 with like 95% humidity. It's super muggy. Originally we were supposed to have a cold front come in last night. It was going to rain all morning. It'd be really chilly, so never trust the weather report. Okay, so the trail continues behind the camera. You can see the sign on the ground. The scenic loop hike adds, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile to a mile. It's definitely worth it. We just saw the Oxboss River. Now we're going to go down on this trail to the river. It's sprinkling out here. I'm actually hoping that this is it and we don't get rain, because I forgot to bring something to cover the camera with. Let's take a look. This is totally worth it. We're walking down into this canyon with the river flowing through it. I still consider it a stream, but a lot of streams are called rivers here in the Ozarks. The rain's starting to pick up. Well, the trail's been rerouted since the last time I was here. It's been a while. I'm going right where I used to go left. So I'll go through this clearing. It's a power line clearing. We used to go the other way and just walk along the stream for a while. Oh, this is a beautiful canyon. I see why they did this. These rocks are enormous. This is such a massive canyon, I just can't capture it all with the camera. I'm going to kind of go around here towards the water, and then I'll come back towards the tops. I need to get a pan tilt head. That would be a lot better. Breakfast. So for a while now, I've been faintly smelling that acrid smoke odor, but only down in the valleys. So we're still a few miles from where that burn occurred a few days ago, but it just must be lingering here in the valleys, just faintly, but it's noticeable. Okay, so you're not going to believe this. I'm maybe around the halfway point or just past it, and my memory card is full on the camera, and the extras I brought with me are the wrong size. They're not going to fit. So there's my camera, which I can no longer use. Got maybe 4 to 5 miles left on this trail. So I'm going to have to just hike out and then come back here and do the rest of the trail in another video. So we'll call this part 1. So I hope you've enjoyed it so far. It's a beautiful area in Missouri. And, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.